Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas and Marks with your host, Joe Staszak, my man, Steve Kallas, right there. June 1st, Stephen, we are officially into, well, I say that every time, Memorial Day runs around, June 20th, whatever. It's summertime. It's June 1st. Nice weather. Basketball finals are set. Pacers and Knicks. It really did come down, in my opinion, to game one. A lot of times you kind of, all right, so that was a crazy game. You excuse that and let's get set again. But really, they just alternated after that. And that was a big swing game for New York. That really was losing that game up 14, 2 minutes left, up nine, 58 seconds left. Came back to haunt them. And got to give the Pacers credit because they took some games off. It seems like at times, there were like these blowouts and then close games. But at the end of the day, they had that in their back pocket, closed it out last night in Indianapolis, and they're off to the finals versus OKC. What'd you think?
I think it was a bad night if you're a New York fan.
It was
I
too
mean, I don't
much.
know what to
Big
say. It
playoff.
was, in horse racing, which we don't talk much about, there's an old saying, pace makes the race. And I think in this Pacers, pace makes the race. I mean, the Knicks held them to 94 points in game five, and you're like, wow, if they can do that, blah, blah, blah. But they certainly couldn't hold them yet. It looked like a jailbreak. It looked like a street game. It seemed like every time, even when the Knicks scored a lot, there was somebody like halfway down the
Halfway
court.
down and how does that happen from game to game? Like,
I think you got to be so aware of it, and the Knicks just didn't seem to be so aware of it. I mean, during the game, I don't know if it was Reggie Miller, who probably shouldn't have called those games for the record, but maybe it was the main announcer. I forget the guy's name, but he said, well, they're just playing harder, and I think that's true. The Pacers were playing harder than the Knicks.
that's unacceptable. There's no excuse for that.
They held Brunson to 19 points. You got to give him credit. That was the lowest of the six games. But also Carl Anthony Towns, you look at him at the end of the game, 22 points, 14 rebounds. You go, wow, pretty good game. But for three quarters, he was
He did
non-existent.
nothing.
And as they often say, the secondary guys, I don't want to demean them, but the secondary guys play better at home. And you look at a guy like Obi Toppin, the former Knick, the guy goes 7 for 11, making two three-pointers out of four. He has 18 points, and you're sitting there going, well, where was that when he was the Knick?
So stuff happens in big games sometimes. Like a guy will come out of nowhere, but
Yep.
where was that?
Yep. But they're much deeper than the Knicks. The Knicks were forced, Thibodeau was forced to use his bench. He's got some bench players. I love Shamit. I liked him when he was on the 76ers. Now, he hit three meaningless threes in a row after the game was over, and he was still in there. But you're like, why didn't he get more time? Because every time he played, he had at least one three. And you got to give those guys a blow. Those guys played 40 minutes or more. Who was it? Was it OG? One of the Knicks went to Thibodeau and said, "You should,
Mikal Bridges.
you shouldn't play them that much." And Mikal Bridges, I love him, but he was up and down that whole series
It
as
really
well.
was.
Sometimes he's not, but I think you're right. It all goes back to game one. You're up 9 points with 58 seconds left. It's hard to lose.
Swing game. That's a two-game swing.
And they would have lost in regulation if Halliburton didn't step on the line with that incredible shot he made. But it really set the tone. Look, you lose two at home, the first two, you like never win. You never win. And we talked about at the time to beat the Pacers 4 out of 5 was going to be a huge order. But after they held them to 94 again, the Knicks were able to slow it down in that game, and they just weren't able to slow it down in game six. And that's why the Pacers went from 94 on Thursday to 125. And then, it was the third quarter that did it. They outscored the Knicks 34-23 in the third, and they were up four at the half. So I'm not saying the game was over after three, but the game was essentially over after three. And you're right, I got it in my notes. Game one decided the series. You're totally right to make that point. I'm glad they gave the Larry Bird Trophy, by the way, to Siakam, 31 points, five rebounds, three blocks, because he was more consistent than Halliburton. Halliburton was real good yesterday, but he was terrible in the first half. But he took the game over in the second half, finished with 21, 11 points in the fourth, 13 assists. They shot 54% from the field, and more importantly, 17 for 33 from threes.
It's when it comes down to it, sometimes basketball, aside from all the analytics and all the angles and defensive possessions and switches and pressures. How more often is the ball going in when you're shooting it? They shot 54%, like you just said, from the field and 51 from three. They're taller all the way across. You line them up, they are so much taller and longer and they shoot better. Sorry, their balls go in more.
You're already hearing the post-mortem on the Knicks, oh, they have to get deeper, they have to get this, they have to get that. You know what the Knicks, and this is from Johnny Kallas. The Knicks need the Greek freak. He seems to be unhappy now. I gave him all the credit in the world. I won the championship. He got that gigantic contract. He decided to stay in little Milwaukee. Now I've been seeing him this year doing some more commercials. I don't know if you follow that kind of stuff at all, but he's been doing some commercials, and you got to wonder if you dropped him in New York. I think they would be a championship team there, but you need that kind of guy. The Knicks, to me, need that. They got a lot of really good players. Brunson, though, Brunson was exposed defensively. I mean, I think after like game 4 or 5, he had given up like 68% shooting percentage when he was the main
I think it was
defender.
about 20, 21, 22, and it went up to 60. And yes, you're right.
Yeah, I love Brunson. I mean, he's an all-star. He's a borderline superstar. I won't say he's a superstar because
He
can't really.
brings it. He does bring it.
Yeah, but I think they have the makings of a really good team, but I don't think, although I think Brunson said afterwards they think right here we have the maybe the championship caliber. I never saw a guy like Towns in his whole career, including going back to Minnesota where he drove to the basket like he drove to the basket. Where's that been the last 8 years or however long he's been? So good for him, but he also got into foul trouble too much. He's not super athletic. He did have an advantage, though, I thought, against the Pacers big men. And but again, when you look at yesterday, 22, 14 rebounds, if you watch the game, you were like, where are you in the first quarter? Where are you in the second quarter? Where are you? I didn't break down the numbers in the fourth quarter, and I'm not saying the game was over. There was always that hope. The Knicks did become the first team, as you know, in these playoffs, two against Boston, one against Indiana, to be down 20 and win the game. Now, again, we talked about that. That didn't happen in the old days when you didn't have a 3-point line. You need 3-point shots to drop a 20, to get over a 20-point deficit. But I think the Knicks are a real good team. They're going to be caught in that middle. We're never going to get a really high draft pick because they're too good. But to me, they're not quite good enough to win it all. And the Pacers didn't expose them, which they did. I think OKC will. So quickly, I'll just say I think it's all OKC in the final. Yes, they're the youngest team. That's what the Pacers have. And when you have a guy like Siakam, who you know firsthand won the championship with Toronto in the break the heart of the 76ers fan days, but he's got that ability. He was cool, calm, and collected.
Right.
After the game, he was cool. I don't think they can beat OKC, but their advantage is they're older, they're experienced. They got a lot of young guys who can play, but they got a guy like Siakam with a championship ring. Um, so I think it'll be a series. I don't think it's like a sweep, but I like OKC. But that's not saying anything. They're the heavy favorites.
Going to the Pacers, I've had them the whole way under the kind of the under the what do you call it, the radar a little bit. I liked them against the
Yep.
Knicks a little bit when everyone was kind of jumping on the Knicks, and I don't blame them because I got to be honest, I am a Knicks fan. I don't know how that happened in New York. Man, I love the Nova Knicks. I like the way they play. I like where they came from, and I just like the whole MSG thing. And I was hoping that they would advance, but I like how the Pacers have been playing all year. I know they had 40 wins earlier in the year, and they ended up with 50. They kind of had a bad half start. I think they're a lot better than most people thought, but. Oklahoma City seems like when they want to focus and want to come out, they'll take care of things. Although I have to kind of question Minnesota a little bit, and that's why I don't know if I texted you. I said that Ant Edwards might be the biggest letdown of the next one I've ever seen. He comes up really small, sometimes in big games. The next time he'll drop 42. Yeah, well, you don't know what you have with him. Which consistency, I think, is part of what makes a champion. And I think he's
Yeah.
inconsistent. I know he's only 23. He'll be fine, but I don't necessarily love every time he shows up. But Oklahoma City, look, they got boat raced in game five, but they can, it happens in all these series for some reason. You come out, you're not focused. The next thing you know, you're down by 42. Like, what? And then
Yeah.
they come out and they blow you out in the next game. So I think it's going to be a close series, but I think it's going to be nip and tuck. And I'm going to go with the Pacers in 6 games. They're going to win at home in 6 games, right? Doesn't Oklahoma City have home advantage?
OKC.
Okay, see, I'm sorry. Yes, they have home advantage, so I'm going to go in 6 games. The Larry O'Brien Trophy's coming back to Indiana. What did Carlisle say last night? Every 49 states love basketball, but only one. I forget what he said. He's talking about Indiana. I know they're big on their Indiana hoop in in Indiana, which is cool. I thought it was cool. It's Indiana. What do they win?
You
They don't
know
win
it's from
much.
Indiana, right?
What's
You
that
know,
about?
you know it's from Indiana, right?
Larry Bird.
You know who else?
Who else from Indiana?
I'm pretty sure the Big O, baby.
Harold Hill. Yeah.
I
Who?
think I think Oscar's from
Oh,
Indiana.
is he? My man.
Didn't he win in Indianapolis? Didn't he go to high school in Indianapolis, I
Very
think?
possible.
I'll have to look that up.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, obviously, we're waiting for the NHL playoffs to resume. We'll talk just real quickly about that game Wednesday night. Here we go. It's another rematch of last year, which is a little weird. But Florida's showing that they are in line to be a mini dynasty. They're about to win, could win. Second straight cup, third trip to the finals against an Edmonton team who was down 3-0 in last year's finals. Came back, made it a series, lost in game seven. They still have the best player on earth in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on that same team. Got good goaltending. A lot of folks out there think that this might be their year. They might, they have an opportunity to right the wrong that was last year. I don't know if it was a wrong. I think Florida's the better team, but we shall see. What are your thoughts? I'm going Florida. They are the champs, and when they play, when they show up to play, to me, they're just a little bit better.
Well, I'm gonna go with Edmonton. I think this is their year. As you say, they came back from 3-0 to force a game seven and lost 2-1. But you're right, Florida has the experience and they have the Stanley Cup win
They
over
got
Edmonton.
Bob. They got Bob.
Yeah, that's right. And here's why they're going to win this year. Here's why Edmonton's going to win. So you know how superstitious hockey players are. And when they win their conference, they never touch
They
the
don't. They
trophy.
usually don't touch.
But this year, McDavid touched the Clarence Campbell Trophy, former commissioner, if you go way back, commissioner of hockey. You usually don't, but there when they took the team picture, McDavid had his hand on the Clarence Campbell. I don't know if that's going to break the schneid, as they say in New York, but McDavid, 100 assists in 70 playoff games. Only one person in the history of the NHL has gotten to 100 assists faster than McDavid. And who would that be, Joe?
In playoff games,
Yes,
well, I'm going to go with one of his former legacy teammates. Would that be 99?
that's correct. He did it in 70 games. McDavid's great, but it took him 90. But as we always talk about, certainly for assists, nobody remotely compares with Gretzky because, as you pointed out, when he was no longer the greatest goal scorer who ever lived, he's got more assists than anybody has points in the history of hockey. So
I
that's
like
just
the fact that back in the I shouldn't say old days, I was growing up, no one would touch the conference trophy like you just mentioned. It started to get a little bit more like, and I'm cool with, I don't believe in superstitions, but some of the captains were coming out and said, you know what, we earned it. Let's celebrate it. What's the difference? Started doing a little bit of it. Although I think Lindros did it one year, they got swept by the Red Wings, so it never happened in Philly again. But it's becoming a little bit of a thing. You know what? I'm cool with that. You know what? You've earned it. It's tough to win a conference title. I mean, I don't know if I go where I'm wearing my T-shirt, second place trophy winner, but celebrate it. It's a win. It's cool. You're in the finals. Now go get it. I
and
think it's
I
going to be an interesting series because Connor McDavid's the fastest thing I've ever seen. You take Gretzky, take whoever you want, take the Yari Curry, Paul Call. I think anyone from that team. McDavid has a set of legs on him like I've never seen. Never seen the explosion in the open ice like Connor McDavid. To have Leon Draisaitl on that same team as well. There was a lot of talk about him having a sign in the offseason, maybe not coming back to Edmonton. It's a good thing having two superstars like that on the same team. Although they McDavid hasn't really been until this past series really that productive. He's starting to turn it on. This is his season, so it's going to be interesting. But again, I
well,
like Bob. I like
I
Bob,
do
and I like that team.
I do want to say though they lost for the series. The
They did. They lost
lost Zach Hyman. He's awful good.
very good.
And I also want to mention our guy Forever, who is still in the league and now playing really. I thought he should have retired a year or two ago. But Corey Perry has 7 goals in this postseason. And I remember him missing a lot of shots last year. And
Yeah,
maybe I'm mistaken, but he's 40 years old. God bless him. Playing in the NHL. That's incredible.
pretty
So
good.
I still like Edmonton, but losing Zach Hyman is a big loss. And I did want to point out Bennett for Florida has 10 goals in the playoffs. Look, they're going to be real tough. I assume they're the big favorites.
We're no
Um,
big favorite. I think it's probably a slight. I don't know if they're big favorite. I haven't
yeah,
looked.
side favorites. But I think McDavid deserves a cup. And finally, we talk about this every year. The last team to win the Stanley Cup from Canada were the Canadians in 1993. So you're looking at 32 years now.
The Montreal Canadiens, they beat the Kings in five.
And I think it's kind of sad. What'll be interesting, and I wouldn't even criticize them if they do. I wonder because when the Canadian team is playing the U.S. team in either spot, they play both the national anthems, and the Canadians who are now, again, I don't know a lot about this, but they're now furious because of these new tariffs that the president put on steel or something is going to ruin the whole Canadian steel industry. So I have a feeling there's still going to be more booing during the national anthem. I hope not. But you know what? If they do, I don't think I'll say it again. If the US was the smaller group and someone from Canada was saying, let's make whatever, whatever, we'd be booing the Canadian national
Sure
anthem.
would.
They played it in New York or Philly or California or wherever. It's kind of a sad state of affairs, frankly, but I think it's going to be a real good series, and I'll go Oilers in 7 this year.
All right, so we're at odds, both series. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, little baseball. You want to talk a little hoot, a little baseball? What's going on over there in
I got a couple of
Aaron Judge
fascinating
still hitting
things.
like 500?
I got a couple of fascinating things that doesn't include the Dodgers beating the Yankees on Friday and then beating them 18-2 yesterday as the Knicks were getting beat as well.
Bad night
But
in New York.
but I did want to say this. So they made a big deal, and I'm sure you heard about this. In the first game, Aaron Judge hit a homer in the first inning. Ohtani hit a homer in the first inning. And so everyone went crazy. It's the second time in the history of baseball, Joe, that the reigning MVPs faced each other and hit a home run. And it was also, if you really want to go deep, it's the first time that it happened in the same inning. Okay, but here's what they forgot to tell you. As you know, there was no interleague baseball until 1997.
Right.
Baseball kind of started in 1893 or 1903, wherever you want to call it. But of course, no, there could be no reigning MVPs facing each other unless maybe somebody got traded like a Frank Robinson. I guess it could have happened like that when Robinson went from the Cincinnati Reds to the Orioles, but it never happened before. But it was virtually impossible. Why? Because they never had interleague play until 1997. So when you tell me it's the first time in history, as I always say on this show, please tell us it couldn't have happened before 1997. It was virtually impossible or impossible, and it never did.
Someone should be back there. These kids today, they're kids.
And they also said, Bonds and Tejada were the first to do it in 2003. Okay, Barry Bonds was a Hall of Fame player before he ever took a steroid, but I don't know 2003. I think that's long after, 1998, when, if you read the book, I forget the title of it, but it's one of the best books ever written, that Bonds was furious that Sosa and McGuire did what they did. And then suddenly he became Super Barry Bonds. But he was the skinny nothing Barry Bonds with 3 MVPs. So as I used to say, if he took a steroid and died the first day he took a steroid, he would have made the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of
Because
Fame.
everybody who's won 3 MVPs is in the Hall of Fame. So I do want to say they also said Ohtani 15 in a month. Um, and they said he's tied for the all-time Dodgers record in a month. I thought he was going to break it yesterday, especially when I heard that they scored 18 runs, but 15 home runs in a month, tied with Duke Snyder in 1953 and Pedro Guerrero in 1985. And I thought he might break it. I thought he would break it last night. When I heard they scored 18 runs, I'm like, he had to hit a home run. They lost 18-2 and Judge hit 2 homers, but Ohtani didn't hit one. But again, my until I die hope that they'd explain. First of all, if you say they're tied for the all-time Dodger record, tell me who the other guys are.
Right.
I had to go look that up, of course. And secondly, understand that it could not have happened before 1997 because there was no interleague play before 1990. That kind of stuff still bothers me, but this one is even better and bothers me more. So Cal Raleigh, who is now quickly becoming a star in Seattle, um, He became the first catcher in the history of baseball, Joe, the
The
history of
history of
baseball,
baseball.
to hit 20 home runs before June 1st. Okay, that's incredible, right? But it kind of gets me going because when you say a guy hit 30 home runs before June 1st, the question to me is, well, how many games did the old timers play? They didn't start the season in March. They didn't start the season on April 1st. So I went to look up a couple of guys. I looked up the biggest home run hitting catchers of all time in a season. And Salvatore Perez, who is not involved in really this conversation, he's got the most ever. He had like 48 home runs. Just 2021, he was already old. The guy's still around. You got to give him a lot of credit. But Cal Raleigh winds up hitting another home run yesterday. So he has 22 home runs before June 1st. And he's the first guy to reach 20. Okay. So I go look up, and the guys who come to my mind are Johnny Bench, Yogi Berra, and Roy Campanella. Now, Bench was more modern, so he, started close to April 1st, but he didn't start on April 1st. I think he started on April 6th. I look up Berra, uh, and he started April 16th, but he was nowhere near by Memorial Day. But then I found Roy Campanella, one of the greatest catchers of all time, 3 times MVP, like Yogi Berra. Bench won 2 MVPs. And so I go look at his stats, and in 1953, he hit 41 home runs. To this day, that's like the number three behind Perez and Bench. So I looked when the season started. When do you think Roy Campanella's season started in 1953?
February.
It started on April 14th.
Okay.
When we love Cal Raleigh. I mean, he's done something no one ever did before. But when did his season start this year? March 27th.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
now that leads me to what you would expect it to lead me. So how many games did Cal Raleigh play before June 1st? And how many games did Roy Campanella play before June 1st? Well, the difference is kind of staggering. May 31st, yesterday, Cal Raleigh, his team had 57 games played, Joe.
Uh,
57.
A
How
lot.
many did Roy Campanella have?
Not that many.
41. That's
Wow.
a 16 game difference. Now, I even went to look at Campanella's home runs up till June, before June 1st. He hit 17, but he hit 17 in 41 games. Am I saying he would have hit 20 if he had 16 more games? Yes, I'm saying that. We'll never know, but yes, I'm saying
Only
that.
stuff you can get here, man. It's only that
I'm just,
fine-tuned
I'm
speculation
just
you get here.
there's always a context, and you got to give the context. And if a guy plays 15 more games solely because of the schedule, not injury, not this, not that, solely because we start nowadays in March 27th, in the old days, and by that I mean 40s, 50s, when my dad was 60s, when my dad was alive, there was very little overlap. There was very little overlap. You didn't have hockey in the NBA running into the middle of June.
June, yeah.
And it was kind of nicer when I was a little kid. It was kind of nicer because you didn't have that incredible overlap, which it's all about this and nothing else. I mean,
Yeah.
should they play 162 games? No. Should
All the
basketball
money.
and hockey play in the 80s? No. Are they ever going to cut it? No. And there's only one reason for that. In fact, as you know, they've extended the playoffs. We added another one in football last year or the year
All the
before.
money. It's going to be 18 games. Why? Because of this.
So I just wanted to get that. I take nothing away from Cal Raleigh. He plays what the schedule is, but hey, so did Roy Campanella. And
Right.
the 16 game differential, which you wake me up if you see that anywhere, I'll give the guy credit. If anybody will say, oh, by the way, he played 16 more games or his team played 16 more games than Roy Campanella. I'm not saying Campanella would have done it or would have beat him. I'm just saying I think he would have hit 3 home runs in 16 games if given the opportunity,
Sure.
which didn't exist in the 50s, certainly.
Sure. You would think so. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. OTAs, anything going on OTAs? Not much. Guys not showing up. Does anyone care? It's the OTAs.
Well, who the guy from the Bengals? Is that Hendrickson? He
But
didn't show.
Hendrickson still wants that money, and I don't know what the Bengals are doing. I know someone who covers the Bengals, and this is what they do. I saw an article come out yesterday. He wrote, talked about wasting Joe Burrow's career, and I don't particularly see an opposite argument to that.
Well, I know Joe stuck up for his offensive guys and got him signed, but did he stick up for the
Now,
defense?
well, he has been now, yes.
Okay, well, look, you got to pay these guys. The
You got
the
to pay these
salaries
guys.
are
17 and a half sacks last two seasons blew away everybody.
the salaries are
Kind of what the
incredibly
Bengals do, though. They're late to the party. That's why now I did a story. I don't know if I sent it to you about the NFL is now looking into cap situations and how people do their capping. Like they're targeting the Eagles now. Not an illegal investigation, but maybe trying to do it a different way. Just some owners don't like copycatting what the Eagles do because they pay up front and they have hit and it saves the money in the end, and the other owners don't want to take that chance. So they're trying to ban everything, push. They're trying to ban the way how he does the cap.
Well, Goodell and the powers that be, they want everybody to be 8-9 or 9-8. They want this, we've talked about this for years now. Oh, the team has, they're like, I don't know,
The
five.
great clarity.
They're always alive, even though they're like, I don't know, 6-9 or something.
Yeah,
2 games left. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But or the NBA, of course, the 7-10 matchup. Give me a break. But again, that's where we are. It's just all about money, all about extra games, all about TV. And the NFL is the 800-pound gorilla in the room versus all these other sports. But I say they want mediocrity. They say they want competitiveness. But competitiveness, again, if you're 9-8 one year and you just missed the playoffs, in the old days, that was like, oh, you had a 500 season. Good luck next year. Baseball, the same thing. When they had 8 teams in each league and you were fifth, you were 500, you were second division. They go, oh, maybe you can get to the top four next year. But nobody ever thought you were going to win a championship the way that some teams have won a championship. Wild card with the Angels in what, 2002? The eighth seed in hockey, which could never happen in basketball, but can happen in hockey because of the hot goalie. And
2012.
the NFL, that team that kind of sneaks in, they don't usually, if ever, win the Super Bowl.
No, it's about the quarterback.
Don't say that rule. It's about the two quarterbacks, right?
Two quarterbacks. Good stuff, brother. Good stuff as usual. What's today? Sunday? We doing Sunday? Oh yeah, it's because
Well, we did Wednesday, so
that's right. We're a little off. I'm always a little off. Good stuff, Steve.
no, no, no.
Catch Steve's stuff on his weekly Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports, where Steve Kallas also has videos on WestchesterCountyPost.com. This podcast on YouTube and all the audio outlets. You can follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak975 and on Instagram at JoeStaszak4799. Good stuff, my friend. Enjoy the day. It's finally getting sunny out here. June 1st already, man. June 1st.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too, pal. Appreciate it, folks. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next weekend.